Matt, when we look at venture studios, we see a couple of different models. So one of them is kind of entrepreneur in residence model, where there is a sort of infrastructure, shared services, and the entrepreneur joins the studio and kind of builds something together, and they churn it out. There's another model where it's more of a holding company. So you build something, and then you build another thing, and those kind of operate in tandem. And
Hmm.
then there's a third one where you build something up until a point, and then you spin it out and give it to somebody else to run with it from there. So, are you seeing any other models? Is this correct? How would you define the different venture studio models?
Well, there's a lot of different ways to approach this. How we are looking to approach this as a standard in the industry is to look at the risk profile of the types of companies that a studio is going to build. So, you hear the word venture studio, you immediately say, venture capital. That's a really, really high risk profile. So that's up there. A little bit lower risk profile is building for private equity or building for M&A. The standards are a little different. The path is a little different. There's a little less risk involved. And then the lowest risk category is we're just going to build a boring old profitable business, cash flow companies. And so if we look across those three categories, and there's also one more I would add, which is breakthrough innovations. This is your deep tech, your biotech. So typically in venture capital, you're taking on something that has some strong market risk, but not a lot of technical risk. If you're doing something breakthrough, there's a lot of technical risk on top of that market risk, and that just makes it a really, really risky category. But we see a lot of great, developments come out of that. But beyond that, the big buckets of, the risk profiles of those companies that you're building, it's how the studio shows up in building those companies. You've touched on this a little bit earlier with, the EIR, how is the studio acting as a holding company? Well, one of the ways we look at a studio is how is it taking on that formation or origination role of the company? Is the studio the founder? They find the idea, build it out, and then recruit, entrepreneurs or, a leadership team to take over and run the company. Are they the co-founder? So they're partnering at or around that idea stage, and you're building this company together from day one. Are you a late co-founder? So you're joining a company that already exists. You might be competing with an accelerator as that studio, but you're still showing up with a strong influence and co-founder role. And then the last version we see is a refounder. This is a studio that licenses IP or acquires a company to use as a foundation to build on. So they're taking something and they're reforming it into the foundation of a great company.